Throughout the history of photography, photographers have turned their lenses on a variety of subjects and created exceptionally powerful, interesting, emotionally thought-provoking photographs, and yet YouTube doesn't really want you to see them. How's it? Way back in February 2018, it was a cold winter's morning in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I was suffering from jet lag, having just flown over the pond the day before. And I was at that feeling, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're wide awake, and I think, what am I going to do? So I killed some time until the buses started driving, and I wandered down to the bus stop on my way to go and see the Pulitzer Prize photography gallery at the museum in downtown DC. Now, I'd been there in 2016, and of course it was closed, because that's what happens when I go to the States and want to see things. They're closed, but I knew that it was open. So there I was, walking these extremely cold streets of DC on that February morning, waiting for the doors to open. And finally they did, and I walked in, and I had basically the place to myself. I was like one of the first people in it. It's such a wonderful feeling to wander the halls of, sadly now defunct museum devoted to journalism, because that was kind of one of my first sort of ideas about photography, is to get involved with that. And I walked around the Pulitzer Prize gallery, and it was a moving experience. The photographs on there cover a whole range of emotions, and of course they're focused mostly on news events. Now, as I've been talking about these, and I've been showing some of these photographs up on the screen, you may have noticed that some of them have been blurred, and there's a reason for that. It's because YouTube has a very innocuous little phrase in its agreements when you upload a video. So when I started uploading videos onto YouTube, I was focusing mostly on, specific photographers, and they were fairly non-controversial. I think it's fair to say, Richard Avedon is not really a controversial figure. Annie Leibovitz is not, but it was in Annie Leibovitz video that I first bumped into the problem behind a fairly nondescript phrase in the agreement that you sign when you upload a video that says that you agree not to, transgress community guidelines. And it was one Sunday, I'd had that video up for I think about a week, and I got an email through on my phone, and it said, just so you know, we have age restricted your video because it contravenes our community guidelines. So I looked through that and I thought, what could possibly, in Annie Leibovitz's photography, be considered, nudity, controversial, and you can imagine the range of cameras. Turns out it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's bum. So his bum had triggered something in their little system, and it's an automated system that just kind of flags your content and makes it age restricted. Now in that case, I was able to reach out, because you can actually reach out to a real person one time, just by the way, and say, look, can you have a look at this and check it? So they said that was okay, and they removed the restriction. But let's fast forward a couple of years to a situation where I was talking with a fantastic photographer called Dan Winters. Now, earlier when we were looking at all those Pulitzer winning photographs, there were two specific ones actually that have been blurred out. Now, I can't obviously put them up on the screen, because you know what will happen? If I do that, exactly the same thing will happen as it happened with Dan Winters. We were talking about Nick Ut and Eddie Adams. So they took two extremely famous photographs during the Vietnam War. One is an execution of an officer, I think it's in Saigon. And the other one is simply called Napalm Girl, where a young Vietnamese girl whose all her clothes have been burnt off is running down the road. It is a profoundly powerful image, an anti-war statement. And I included those in the video, despite having sort of checked if there were other videos that had used these images, because my spidey senses were tingling that this might not quite fly. And I thought, do you know what? These are historically, important photographs. So I put it up there, and the video was going great guns. In fact, for a long form video content, it was, and an interview at that, it was doing exceptionally well. And then, you know what's coming, don't you? Right, bang, you can't, age restricted. And it says that your content's still viewable, and people have to be signed in. What that means in reality, which is why this is such a problem, is why I kind of wanted to sort of discuss it with you today, is that the real world ramifications of that is that video stops being promoted. End of discussion. You can see in the graph I've put up on the screen, the views are going up and up and then nothing. This is what happens when your content is age restricted. And that can be for a variety of reasons. In this case, when I flagged the things and I wrote back to them, I said, look, these are two very important photographs. They actually came back and said, well, we've not only have we age restricted your video, we have also kind of flagged it for, and I can't believe this, but using the P word that ends with ography. I was just like, you have got to be kidding me. So this is not a slagging off YouTube situation, because they are a business and we upload images or videos according to the terms of their service, and it's up to it's up to them to decide what sort of content they want on the platform. However, where does that leave channels like myself and other photography channels? Because this is just a photography problem. It's not really an art problem. Paintings and drawings are not an issue. When we want to discuss photography that isn't specifically controversial for controversy's sake, but features, let's broadly call them adult themes. And it doesn't just stop at that kind of content. It carries on into things like fashion photography. So any hint of a bare breast or a bum that is even remotely suggestive of titillation, in fact, it doesn't even have to be suggestive of titillation, it just has to be there, will flag the system, will cause that video not just to be demonetized, because that's obviously one aspect, but I mean like nobody will see it. That's my big issue with this. Is if people want to demonetize the videos, okay, that's fine. There are other ways that that people can support the channel and all those kind of things. But to say that nobody can see your video, that we're not going to push it, that we're not going to suggest it to other people to watch who may be interested in it, in fact are interested in it, I feel that's a bit too far. That's a little bit of kind of censorship going on. Now that's a big word that I hadn't expected. I didn't really want to throw that into the map. But I'd be interested to hear, what your thoughts are about this kind of matter. I mean, the demographic on this channel is heavily weighted to people who are, 45 plus. We're all grown-ups here. I think we can all talk about things without sniggering. We can decide whether or not something is sort of shocking, and I'm certainly not suggesting that I just want to show shock value. I don't want to sort of celebrate images that sort of things that can actually just be sort of controversial for controversy's sake, and there are photographers who engage in that sort of thing. But I want to talk about Helmut Newton. There's a photographer who, again, we're on that broad thing. Sally Mann, I have to be very careful about the types of photographs of Sally Mann's that I show, because not just the stuff of her family, which I think is gorgeous and lovely and all that kind of stuff, but also the pictures of that she did at the dead body place. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Nadav Kanda has a wonderful series of naked forms that he has dusted in like a flour or some plaster, sort of a white coating, and they're ethereal and fantastic. But again, I can't show them. Even Harry Callahan's Eleanor has caused issues on the channel before. Now, I don't think there is anybody in the world who could possibly suggest that Harry's photographs of Eleanor are created to titillate. The whole range of images that could be, a cause for having a video, just run on and on, from documentary photography, combat photography, any genre of photography, I think with the exception of possibly landscape, although I'm pretty sure we could find something controversial in landscapes, runs the risk of these things. And to reiterate, you know, I have no problem with the fact that these are, you know, the community guidelines that they want to call. These are the rules that YouTube have in place. But what irks me about this is that they will not tell you the photographs that are the problem. That I think is ridiculous, because they say, when I've written back and say, can you just tell me what the problem is in this Sebastião Salgado video that I put up years ago that now, a year later, has been flagged for mature content? And they go, no, if we tell you, then you can learn how to game the system. And it's just like, I'm sorry, okay, just can you tell me? So I went through that video, and it's 12 and a half minutes long. I mean, it's a long-ish video, almost frame by frame, thinking, what is it? Is there something in the mining that they have a problem with the people with the mining? And then out of the corner of my eye, I found it, and I'll put the picture up on the screen here, and I'm going to blur the little bit that was the problem. It's that level of ittiness, itty-bittiness that I find frustrating. But if there are photographers who you want to see, who I haven't featured, and you think, you know, might be a little bit controversial, whose work may be borderline, you know, not being, for want of a better word, suitable for YouTube, let me know. I'm interested, you know, I'm happy to make private videos, you know, put them up on a place like Patreon or somewhere. If that's the sort of thing that interests you, let me know again in the comments. If you want to see that video about Salgado, which is age restricted, then check out this video over here. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.